Good morning, all of you. First of all, I would like to welcome you for this particular FDP. So, I believe that you are learning a lot of things from this. So, as indicated here, today the theme is data stream analytics for Internet of Things. So, basically, I believe that you have already gone through a lot of fundamental things related to Internet of Things. So we are basically extending your exposure towards the data stream analytics. So this is the goal for this session. So let me start it. So I have divided the session into four different directions. So first, I will just discuss about the present era of IoT and how it is deriving big data and data stream in new dimension. Then the second thing is we'll start with the basics of data streaming. Then there are many issues in the data streaming part, which comes from the IoT application. So that I will cover. And then I will discuss some of the challenges and research questions. And lastly, there are some concluding remarks for your future direction. So as we know that internet is everywhere. Actually, the world is driven by internet nowadays. So it started with the connection between people and people. Okay, but nowadays it is not only the matter of person-to-person connection, but IoT connects all the things. So that's why it is known as Internet of Things. So its range is unlimited nowadays. You can say whatever gadgets we are using, whatever devices we are using, now everything is connected with the internet. So as you have already come across, like internet thing is the network of physical devices. So the range is too wide, like it is connecting devices, vehicles, buildings, and many other items, including the electronic devices, including softwares, including sensors, including network equipments. So these connections are basically they are exchanging either information or they are the source of data generation. So this is all about the Internet of Things scenario. And you can assume that the applications are also very wide, like they are used for the agriculture purpose, they are used for the everyday life, maybe in terms of smart homes and smart city concept. It is also used for healthcare in terms of telemedicine, in terms of pervasive healthcare monitoring. It is used for security purpose, for surveillances purpose, and it is also used for many of the mobile driven applications. So basically applications are very wide. So why these applications are among us? Because it is you feel like with the help of IoT or with the help of this changed scenario, we are getting a better towards a better life. So there are many applications where this IoT applications are supporting our day-to-day life. So I'm taking some examples like wearable collision warning device for visually impaired. So basically, it is one very interesting example of IoT devices where a pocket-sized device can warn the particular person in terms of any possible collision or any obstacle. So it is a research from MIT. Okay. Similarly, you can see the another diagram where there is a IoT based stick. So this stick is for visually impaired person, and this stick can help that person to walk, and maybe it is going to help for identification of certain collision or some kind of obstacle. Similarly, there are IoT-based hearing aids. So it is also to support communication with the range of various possible applications. Like sometimes it is for hearing impaired person. Sometimes it may be for elderly people monitoring. So there are many possible aspects which are based on the hearing aid. Then IoT can also help for fall detection. So fall detection is again for pervasive healthcare monitoring, for especially for the elderly people. So if they are alone, with the help of IoT devices, we can understand their day-to-day pattern, and we can also get information about something unusual. Then IoT connected wheelchairs. Okay, so IoT connected wheelchairs are not only the wheelchairs for the movement purpose, but it is a complete set of device which is fully equipped with various body sensors. So it cannot, it can monitor our heart rate, blood pressure, temperature, and it can also guide us for certain movement. Okay, so this is, you can see in the another picture, there is a smart bench in London. So this smart bench is not only a place where we can sit or wait, but it is providing various kind of features. For example, it is indicating about the air quality at that place. It is serving for the Wi-Fi. It is helping us to get the devices charged. It may be having USB port, or it may be having some other sensors, so that we can get some extra essential features out of it. Similarly, when the concept of smart city is now very trending, so all the smart city features, maybe it is related to traffic management, or it is about online parking system, or it is about dynamic routing of particular person, or it may be about structural monitoring of various units, maybe the bridges, maybe the any particular public building, or in present scenario, if it is a case of social distancing. So everywhere this IoT is playing its role. So suppose we want to maintain proper distance, so as recommended by WHO during this COVID-19 period, so we can take the help of already installed this CCTV cameras, and with the help of certain deep learning mechanism, we may either alert certain alarm, or we may alert some kind of caution advisory to the management team of the public places, so that they can maintain this with full caution. So these are wide range of examples where IoT devices are serving us for our better life. Similarly, we can see that if it is a case of some tunnel, so that that kind of environment, that kind of ambience can also be maintained by the IoT device, where we can take several safety measures. So safety measures in terms of its air quality, safety measures in terms of its obstacle management. Let us take the example of waste management. You can see the two pictures. The picture one may be the present one, and the picture two is basically a smart dustbin which can transmit the data about its status. So it can send a reminder message to the municipality team, so that they can offer their services as and when required. So this is again one of the very interesting and very day-to-day example, we very close to the human life kind of examples for the IoT. I'm taking another example of IoT. This is a kind of mobile app named as Last Cigarette. So it is basically counting any time whenever the person is consuming a cigarette. So it is having a smoke detector. So it is counting the frequency of the smoking. It is also counting, means it is indicating various vital parameters which are going to affect with the help of this some of the sensors, and it is going to just remind us for the possible means harm of that particular habit. Means basically it is going to give us various alarms as on time. So what you will see, like IoT enables us with increased awareness, security, power and efficiency. So there are various examples, like if it is an automatic metering interface, or if it is a some vehicular network. So every time, the purpose of IoT is for demand and response. The purpose of IoT is also to schedule the various actions without human intervention, and they are basically serving in terms of microgrids. They are basically for the support of various non-technical losses, and IoT is as a part of this vehicular network. It is supporting the autonomous driving nowadays. It is for the accident detection. It is for fast traffic. So there are various ways to have the fast traffic with the help of FASTags. It is also for the congestion monitoring purpose. So these are the common IoT applications which we are observing nowadays. But what is going in background? So basically, these large IoT systems are complex. So what kind of complexity it is having? The complexity is basically edge location. So whatever sensors we are installing, we need to take care of it. The complexity is because most of the time these IoT sensors demands location awareness. So GPS availability or some other location related availability is the one of the key feature. These are the low latency applications. These are geographically apart. So how to maintain their synchronization, how to maintain the connectivity, it is an issue. And finally, the one very important thing is these are at large scale. So we have to see that how to integrate all these small components for a common purpose as a single unit. Similarly, if we are considering the vehicular network, so it needs support for mobility, it needs real-time interactions, okay, and it is basically heterogeneous, and it is wireless, and since it is having a very broad range of heterogeneity, interoperability or common standards may be an issue, or it needs some extended services maybe for the storage purpose. So that is again a difficult thing. So basically all those common applications, if we are observing from user point of view, they all are very attractive, very supportive. But if we are observing it from technical administration point of view or project management point of view, so all these setups are very, very complex. So what finally I'm turning the direction. So since it is a very wide set of challenges associated, but we are basically here for observing its data analytics part. So basically the conclusion is traditional data analytics techniques are not adequate. So I think you all are agree, like whatever the infrastructure I have given an idea, like they allow billions of readings per day to be transferred continuously. Since it is pervasive in nature, so it is 24/7. Then the second important thing is the latency part. Okay. So the latency in occurred while transferring the data does undermine the utility of the analysis. So basically all these applications are very specifically time bound. They are time sensitive. So if you are losing the time, like as the time passes, they lost their value. So that is very important. Then see the third point. Is it secure to concentrate all the data in a single place? So you, as we have already seen, like the applications are very sensitive. It is all automatic without manual intervention. So data is playing a vital role. So whatever actions are there, it is all data driven. So how we can rely upon the fair uses of data, how we can rely upon its safe storage. So that is an issue. Okay, is it smart to give away fine-grained data? So ultimately, you know that if it is a continuously data generation task, then how we will decide about their volume part. like what kind of data we can store, what kind of data we can discard, or what kind of data maybe not of our use. So all these things are we have to decide in a very timely way. Then only we can avail the potential of the possible IoT applications. So this was all about the background, what is going on nowadays. And I have taken two aspects. One is the user aspects. Users are very much excited about the IoT applications. They are welcoming it. It is very trending nowadays. But if we see the developer aspect, the project management aspects, and other technical aspects, the scenario is not that comfortable. So there are a lot of things in background that are really challenging, and it is getting more difficult day by day to manage various technical aspects. So just to narrow down, I'm coming to one important aspect, like how we manage the data analytics with these IoT devices. So most of the IoT devices, they are generating the data continuously. So that's why the existence of data streams comes here. So now I'm starting the basics, some of the background details of data streams. So the question is, as the name indicate, you can easily understand various features of the data stream. But if I am asking, what is the most important feature of data stream? So here I want to emphasize on its variation part. So data which is continuously generating from millions of sources, they are having variations. And you can say that, like if we are generating a weather data, we are not aware what will be the data readings in next few seconds. So that is basically the variation. And what are the challenges with the variation? So we always afraid, or we always concern about the variation because they are not known to us. Means here we are lacking the knowledge. So if we are not having the confidence about the situation, if we are lacking the knowledge, so it becomes critical. And that is basically the variation. And it is basically the one of the prime challenge of data streaming. And if it is coming from IoT devices, so you can imagine the concern. So whatever data it is coming, if it is not known to us, so that will create a lot of anxiety, or that seek special attention from us for its efficient management. So variations are everywhere. Variations are there with the IoT data. And so how we can handle it? See, we cannot eliminate the variation because it is the nature of the IoT applications which we are using. They are full of variations. What we can do maximum, the maximum which what we can do is to reduce the variation up to certain extent, and we can control the variation, and we can learn from the variation, and we can make our system ready to adopt all these possible variations. And that is what the data streaming is actually used for. So I'm just giving one animated example of data streaming. And there are two terms. One is data in motion, and second is data at rest. See, if we are allowed to store the data, and if we are having sufficient time to utilize that data later for any of future decision making, that stored data would be considered as data at rest. So whatever data we are storing in any secondary devices, that is basically data at rest. So we can use it later, we can use it again and again, we can refine our knowledge, we can try more and more learning algorithms. So that is data at rest. So here the comfort level is substantially good. But what about data in motion? So data in motion means whatever data it is coming to us, it is coming at certain speed, and maybe we are not having time to store. It is not feasible to store, but decision making is important. So we need to take the decision immediately, maybe within the fraction of microseconds or milliseconds. So we cannot afford any delay or latency. And since it is only at once, means whatever data is coming, if we are missing that data, maybe we are missing some important observation. So since it is only at once, so that is also a challenging thing. Since it is not going to repeat again, so again maybe it is very challenging. So basically what I want to say, most of the time this IoT data, they generate data which is in motion. So whatever we need to do, we need to do it immediately. We need to process it immediately. All the learning, all the decision making, visualization, everything we have to do without any delay or latency, on real time fashion, and with very limited memory resource, because we have no time to store. We uh, uh, we need immediate response. So even we cannot devote any time of access delay or storage delay, so that is basically out of question here. So and what are our expectations? Our expectation is we want to learn the model, we want to predict or forecast, we want to classify. So we want all the decision making capabilities, whatever we experienced with the data at rest, the same we want to imply with the data in motion. But you know, the challenges are more while dealing with data in motion. So basically, you see, in most of the time, there is a separate keyword which are closer to the IoT application. It is complex event processing. So what we are doing, whatever data we are getting, with the help of that data, we are sensing certain events. And if the event is simple, then the issues are limited. But if that events are complex, complex event means maybe the event can be defined with the help of multiple data sources. Maybe the event can be understood with the help of data fusion of some of the IoT devices. So basically, complex event processing is something which is a very important area with the Internet of Things which we deal. So basically, there are two types of data processing. I think the idea is clear now. One is the static data processing. Static data processing means we have limited data. Data is available to us. Data is static. It is not changing. And we are free to take our decision. Maybe iteratively, again and again, we can refine our decision. But second is when the data is in motion. And when the data is in motion, so basically it comes under complex event processing, because whatever we events are there, it is very much time bound. So we need to decide immediately. And if we are losing that particular moment, so we are losing important observations. Okay. So complex event processing can be anything. I will give some more examples. Like you see, it is a automatic bottling plant example. Okay. So in automatic bottling plant examples, we are filling that bottles with the help of some mechanical arrangement. And our goal is to identify overflow and underflow. And you can understand how this can be possible. So maybe there are sensors. The sensors are observing the weight or maybe the indicators of that particular liquid, and accordingly it is observing the underflow and overflow condition. Maybe it is taking some moisture as a measurement. So basically it is not a single sensor which is working, but collection of sensors are there. We are taking the readings from all those, and accordingly we are identifying if it is overfilled or underfilled. Then we need to change the process, and if it is okay, we want to seal it. So this is all about the automatic bottling plant example. So whenever there is a overfill or underfill condition, it can be identified as a complex event, because now we need to take a precautionary measure. Sometimes human attention may be required. So basically, most of the time you see that IoT devices are dealing with either normal events or complex events. Whenever it is a case of complex event, then many of the data management issues are prominent. For example, we want efficient fusion, we want on-time fusion, we want collective decision making, and we need immediate attention if the event is a complex event, and if some special measures has to be taken. So this is one of the concern of the IoT data related to the data streaming. Okay, so many times the event monitoring is automated, and the event monitoring is a complex activity because it is based on data sources from multiple geographical locations, maybe in multiple formats. So there are many issues which we need to handle. And the latency part is also very important. We have to respond immediately without any delay. And we have to see the efficiency part, because we cannot afford any kind of errors. Okay, so these are just an example like how we are dealing with the data streaming. Now, the question is why real-time analytics is important. So real-time analytics are important because we want real-time visibility of the system so that we can be more and more proactive. We want to handle the inaccuracies and delay. So that's why real-time processing is important. We want to avoid any downtime. So we need immediate response from the system. So real-time processing is important. And most of the time you see all these real-time processing are helping us for efficient ongoing services of the particular system. So basically they are providing a way of preventive maintenance. So that's why this real-time processing is very important in various applications. Okay. Now I am coming to the challenges. Like if we agree that we need real-time processing with the data, especially in the domain of IoT, then what kind of challenges we have to address and how it is possible. So I'm taking a very small exercise. So it's a simple streaming example. Suppose this picture is showing the occurrence of certain events. If I am asking like how many dots you can see, and these dots are nothing but an event, you can simply answer it is 4. Again, the same question, you can simply answer it is 7. So there are 7 events going on. Again, you can answer, may not be very comfortably, but it can be answered, maybe it is 20. But if I am again asking like how many red dots you can see, or blue dots you can see, or yellow dot you can see. So basically what we are doing, we are adding complexities. So basically streaming applications are not that smooth all the time. So they are full of complexity. So here we are having very limited time, but we need to answer all these questions like what are the different types of events we can see. Similarly, if we are adding more complexity, and these are the temporal complexity, so maybe we are concerned about the sequence of their occurrence, maybe we are concerned about their means correlation, like how the red dots or the red events are related with the blue events. So basically, there are the possibility of more and more temporal complexities. So if this is the situation, even the human brain, which is the most efficient thing, cannot be able to answer immediately. How we can prepare machines, how we can prepare models so that they can answer immediately? That is the biggest challenge. So we need to handle this issue very perfectly so that it can serve the purpose without any error. Okay, so I think the data stream definition is clear. It is nothing but potentially infinite sequence of data, and it is in ordered format. We represent the data stream in terms of vectors, and you can easily imagine the data streams are from various applications, maybe aviation control data set, maybe sensor readings, maybe industrial control data sets, maybe telecommunication connection data sets. So this is all data streams. What are the constraints? Constraints are basically whatever data we are getting, these data are results of some events. Like anytime if you are scanning certain objects through some scanning mechanism. So that event is scanning of the object, and as a result you are getting data, maybe details of that particular object. So we are generating data from the events, and we are responding to the environment in terms of events. So suppose we are it is a airport security unit where we are scanning the luggages, and we are observing if some objectionable items are there. So data generation is nothing but the pictures of all the belongings of any particular person. So it is data generations are pictures. And what are the output event? Output event may be certain alarm, maybe some caution notice. So basically the input is also in terms of events, and the output should also be in terms of certain events. Okay. And what is in between? In between is use volume of streaming data flowing at very high speed, maybe millions of record per second. Okay, so we are basically processing millions of record per second. And what are the limitations? The limitation is, if you want to respond, if you want to convert data into the form of appropriate action or events, the latency can be in terms of fraction of seconds, maybe in terms of microseconds and milliseconds. So how to take correct decision within the fraction of microseconds or milliseconds, that is actually very challenging. Then you see data is coming from varied sources as indicated in this animation, and these sources may not be having the same way of data production, means the same frequency of data production, may not be having the same format of the data. So how to synchronize among all, how to perform the data fusion, and then how to take the correct decision. So it is all something which is not that easy, which it looks like in terms of its end utilization is concerned. So basically the whole database management system is now having a very different dimension, that is data stream management system. Okay, so it is completely different from the traditional DBMS, and we are having continuous, ordered, changing, fast, and huge amount of data as compared to the limited storage of data which we used to refer earlier as a traditional database management system. Okay, I can show you one diagram which can show the difference. Like batch processing, they are comfortable. It is having static files. We can process it after some time, and it can deal with the batch processors. Stream processing, it is low latency apps. It is event stream. We need to sense and response immediately. So that is basically a little different. Okay. Fine. So what are the important things which we need to observe while dealing with the data streaming? They arrive continuously, okay, and there is always a natural timestamp, and sometimes we cannot control the arrival of the data because the sources are heterogeneous. So there may be any issue where the data arrival cannot be ensured, but data arrival may matters. Okay, and sometimes we also know the length of the data. So these are the important properties of data stream. So basically it is just a snapshot. Like earlier it was static analysis, now we are dealing with the streaming data. Earlier it was the data warehouse for the static data, now it is a streaming data warehouse. Streaming data warehouse means there is no need to store, but there are immediate response required. Okay, earlier it was database management system, now it is basically data stream management system. So data stream management system means we need to run the continuous queries, we are doing the sequential data access, and we have to respond immediately. So this is the data management approaches which are now entirely in new shape because of these ample amount of IoT applications. So concerns are almost same. The scenario is the changed. Like there are data, and the data can be stored. If we are talking about the streaming part, so we have no time to store the data into some secondary devices. We can store very limited data up in the main memory for very limited time, but simultaneously we need to also process certain queries, and whatever query results are there, that we have to respond immediately. So that is something which is very important. And these queries are not static kind of theory queries. These means if you are taking certain observation, so you need to take that observation with every data instance. You cannot miss some of the data instance. So basically this is the difference between data streaming and traditional database management system. Now, if we see the overall cycle of data utilization, if it is a streaming part, so we start with the data ingestion, where the data is gathered from varied sources. Then we need to definitely perform certain kind of data filtering. Okay. Then obviously data cleaning may be applicable. After data cleaning, there are some clarity with the data sets. So data contextualization is possible. Once the data is available on the basis of certain context, then we are free to do some kind of descriptive statistics. So some of the things can be visualized. After this part, there are also scope to either perform the prediction or to perform the classification. Okay. Uh, After this, maybe repeatedly you can have subset of data in terms of data contextualization, because if you are doing some of these tasks, basically you are refining data again and again. These refined data can come up as data summarization, and this data summarization can be understood to us in terms of some subset of data for a very specific use. So these are some basic streaming tasks. Okay, you can see the color coding which is used here. So basically the blue areas, it is showing the predictive nature of the data utilization. So we utilize the data for the predictive purpose. You see the green color code. So it is for understanding purpose or descriptive analytics. So we process the data for better understanding, for more descriptive representation. Then you see there are orange aspects. So it is diagnostic analytics. So sometimes we process the data to diagnose something new, something novel, something surprising. So these are the various ways how we can utilize the data streams coming from multiple sources of IoT data for our decision making purpose, and to run various applications to serve the particular purpose. So now I am coming to the platforms, like how these desired things are feasible. So these things are feasible with the help of various streaming platforms. Luckily, there are various streaming platforms we are utilizing in an open source way. So they have to serve for this purpose. It should able to ingest the data. It should able to process the data. It should able to analyze the data. Processing means all cleaning, pre-processing, etc. Analyzing means to understanding, like what is the diagnostic part here, what is the descriptive part here, what is the predictive part here. Accordingly, we need to respond, and accordingly, it should be visualized. So these are the 5 attributes of a data streaming platform. I am going to give you the idea like what kind of data streaming platforms are popular nowadays. So if we talk about the data collection or data acquisition or data ingestion, Kafka Apache Kafka is one of the open source tool, and it is very popular nowadays. Okay, so it not only supports the data ingestion part, but it also help us to organize the data in terms of topics. So data management, early data management issues can be efficiently handled with the help of Kafka. Then if we see there are 2 types of processing possible. One is the stream processing and second is the batch processing. So batch processing means we are assuming that data is in limited batch, but in stream processing we are assuming that data is coming continuously. Okay, so for that Apache Spark and Apache Flink. These are the two open source platforms, and they are serving the purpose in all possible ways. If we are observing the visualization purpose, so there are various machine learning applications. They are helping us to visualize it for all the possible end utilization. So basically, these are the 4 stages of data streaming architecture. Okay. So I am coming to each of them one by one. So one is the data collector. So Kafka is used for real-time data pipelines, streaming part, and it is very much scalable. Scalable means it can accommodate more and more data, and it is fault tolerant also. So it is having the utility of keeping replica copy of the data elements so that we cannot lose the data due to any of the possible errors, and it is working fast also. So what the role of the Kafka is, basically it is providing a kind of buffer where the data can get stored for some particular time, and that buffers can be defined with the help of various topics. Okay. Then we have processing platforms, for example, Storm, Spark, and Samja. So they are doing the basic processing, for example, filtering, aggregating, transforming, doing some calculations, offering certain machine learning tasks. And finally, the last phase of the visualization purpose. So for visualization purpose, we can prepare various real-time monitoring dashboards so that the results can get utilized. So this is basically the integrated environment where the Kafka is playing a wide role. Okay. The another data collector is Flume. So the advantage is Flume is a distributed, reliable data collector, and it is having ability to accommodate more and more log data. So it can accommodate the data from the static sources as well as from the dynamic sources, and it can help us to feed the data to the streaming processing platforms for the machine learning purpose or for querying purpose. And finally, it can able to help us to view the results in a more customized way. The another data collector is Amazon Kinesis. So these are some data collectors. Once the data collector is serving its purpose, the next layer is processing the IoT big data and analyzing it to extract meaningful insights. So the platforms are Spark, Flink, Storm, S4, and Microsoft Stream Insight. So I am giving the detailed view of the Apache Flink. It is a framework and distributed processing engine for computation of data streams. So you can see that data is coming from various sources, and it is having important features like it can handle the data in real-time fashion, or it can handle the data in near real-time fashion. The important thing is it can take the data from varied resources or from distributed resources, as well as it can process the data in a distributed fashion. So it may be more responsive because according to the various events, it can process the data which is of event driven data, and it can also respond to the certain point of time to serve the purpose in terms of event. Then it is having streaming pipelining. So concurrent as well as parallel execution of data streams are possible, and it can show the results in terms of applications, in terms of event logs, in terms of various data formats which are suitable for the dashboards. Okay. So if we talk about the last layer, that is the visualization layer. So visualization layers can utilize the NoSQL database for faster visualization. And other very commonly used names are MongoDB, Cassandra, DynamoDB, and then Azure Document DB. So these are basically some of the common names where we can store the data for inbuilt visualization. Cloud file store is also one of the very common application. And if we particularly talk about the visualization tool, so Amazon QuickSight, Microsoft Power BI, and Tableau, these are the some of the basic visualization tools. Now, if this is the platform which is already available and most of the things are integrated, then where the researchers' attentions are required. So now I am going to raise some of the stream processing issues. Uh, we assume that it is an unbounded sequence of data. So you can see that this is the vehicle speed report, which is coming with the help of some IoT deployment. So here we are representing vehicle ID, time, speed, and X and Y coordinates. Okay, so and you can understand if it is a vehicle speed report, so it is a very fast data which we are receiving, and it is efficient, means it is also updating in a faster way. Okay, now the question is like how to understand all these kind of data streams. So basically what we do, we consider the data arrival in terms of operators. So there are various data operators, they work uh, uh, concurrently or parallelly to analyze the status of the particular event at any particular time. And as far as the decision making is concerned, they can take a collective decision. So basically all the time, whatever queries we are processing, that queries can get responded with the help of various stream operators. Okay, now what kind of operators are there? There are two types of operators. One is the stateless operator. It do not maintain any state, perform one by one, and uh, if even if it is keeping certain information, so that information is for very limited time. Second is the stateful operator. So it is maintaining a state and it is depending on the tuple being processed, and it produces output tuples that depends on multiple input tuples. So basically this is the stateful operator, so having some state under operation. Now what kind of stateless operators? So basically filtering, mapping means it is converting from one to another form, or union. So basically these are the stateless operators which we perform. So I have given one very simple representation of Apache Flink methods. Like there is a map function. So it converts the data stream in terms of mapping. Suppose we want to double the number. Suppose we want to truncate the particular reading. So that we can do with the help of mapping function. Okay. So flat map is similar to this. It takes more than one elements and we can convert it into some desired value. Similarly, the union is there, so union operation can get performed. So these all inbuilt operations are available in Flink. Okay, the similar functions are also available in Spark. So we and if we see the stateful operator, so there are aggregates. So aggregate information, it is taking the multiple observation in some memory status and finally performing the aggregate. Similarly, for joining purpose also, we need some of the previous data to be stored, and then we are generating the join results with the help of some operators. So stateful operators are also defined in Apache Flink or Apache Spark, and they are having some inbuilt functions for certain operations. Okay, now the question is like, okay, fine, if these are the possibilities already available with the streaming architectures, then where is the load? So the load is basically it is because the stream are unbounded. So if it is unbounded, then how we can aggregate or join? So there is an arrangement which is known as windowing arrangement. So windowing arrangement means dividing the data streams into some manageable units. So we can have the count based window. So every time we are processing the data in terms of some windows. So we have the fixed size windows, or we have means count based windows. So like every time we are processing only 5 elements at a time, or it is having a time based window. So we are taking the data interval in every fraction of times. Okay. So then we have the sliding window. So sliding windows means that we want to not only to accommodate the new data, but we also want to means forget some of the previous data so that we can update our knowledge. So that is the sliding window, which is possible. Sometimes our abstraction towards the data streaming is on session based. So we take various sessions. So it is a session based window, and sometimes mixture of all those are possible. So windows are the mechanism where these unbounded sequence of data can be taken into the form of manageable units for certain operations. So in these stream platforms, data streaming platforms, they offer us various stateful operations for the windows. So we can define our windows, maybe time based, maybe tuple based, maybe we can also define like what should be the size of the windows, how we can aggregate the window, how to perform the sliding window. So it is all there where we can define these features. So you can see these two snapshots. One is taken from Spark and one is taken from Flink, and they have the options to customize these windows characteristics. So either you can choose thumbling window or sliding window, count window. So basically these can be customized here in terms of our expected range or in terms of our expected size. Okay. Now, what are the other challenges? The other challenges are whatever data we are considering in the form of windows, we need to perform the queries on that particular window. Okay, so suppose we want to, we are observing the vehicle data and we want to see how the alert can get raised for some specific conditions. So how we perform this particular kind of queries? So basically we need to aggregate the data. So aggregating means we are computing the average speed of each vehicle during the last 30 days. So we are computing the aggregate. Okay. And for each vehicle, we are having certain fields like vehicle ID, time, speed, X and Y coordinates. Okay. So after aggregating, we are getting the vehicle ID, time and average speed. Okay. Then we are joining in terms of various vehicle IDs. And finally, we are checking the condition. So in this way, we would able to answer the query for, and that is for each vehicle, we want to raise an alert if the speed of the latest report is more than 2 times higher than the average speed in the last 30 days. So although this was a very simple query, but we need to perform a lengthy operation again and again with each vehicle in terms of aggregation, joining and filtering. Then only we can come up with this result. Okay, so that kind of processing burden is here. Now I am raising one very important issue, that is concept drift. So what is concept drift? Concept drift problem, I can take the example and then I think it would be understood by all. Like it is the change in behavior. For example, if you recall our early days, when there was mobile phones just started, the idea of using mobile phone is to make a phone call. Okay, so manufacturer they were preparing the mobile devices for the voice call only. Later, after 2005, the text messages becomes the part of life. And then after 2010 onwards, our interest towards the multimedia applications increases. Then after 2015, the mobiles are mainly means used for the camera purpose, for multimedia purpose. And if you say nowadays, we are using mobiles mostly for the internet connection or internet related applications, and voice calls are having very limited attraction. So what I want to say, like this is the way how the mobile devices are changing, how the users' expectations are changing, and how the manufacturers contribution is changing. So this is basically a concept drift. Concept drift means same mobile device. Earlier it was used only for the voice purpose. Now it is used for the it is a kind of internet device. We are using internet through mobile. So this is the concept drift. Okay. So now the question is, like, if it is a concept drift, we cannot stop. So whatever IoT platform which developed for day one, for example, like earlier it was only surveillance purpose. Using the video, this CCTV was the surveillance purpose. But now we want to maintain social distancing with the help of that CCTV, means surveillance. So it is a kind of concept drift. It is not an issue, like we are not only looking for the security, but we are looking to maintain social distancing. So it is a concept drift. So concept drift is everywhere in all applications. The question is, if you are preparing a complete platform, how you are ready for the concept drift? Definitely we cannot. We cannot be very proactive, but we should be attentive. So whenever there is a chance of concept drift, we need to update our model, we need to update our understanding again and again. So it is not that easy. Why it is not that easy? I can show you one very quick example. Like you see, it is a simple data separation plane, maybe an example of SVM, where we are separating the data. If it is a streaming data, after a few minutes, you need a new separation plane because data distribution is changed. Again, you need a new separation plane. Again, you need a new separation place. So what you are doing here, you are updating your SVM model again and again for the new data. So the question is, how fast our SVM can update itself for the new data? Okay, so if you are updating again and again, so there are delays, there are cost burden, there may be training time burdens. So there are so many things. So basically, this is the drawback of the concept drift, or this is the challenge of the concept drift. There are two types of concept drift. Again, very quickly, I'm going to explain. One is the real concept drift. Real concept drift, I'm again taking an example. Suppose there is a Harry Potter film series, okay, and any watcher can identify it as a interesting or junk, okay. So if the watchers are adult, so if I'm the case, maybe although I'm not aware of about these kind of films, but maybe I can see it, I can watch it, and I can enjoy it for few movies, because maybe it is having a very specific features like a special effect or something like that. But after some time, maybe it feels me boring. So this is the real concept drift, because I'm changing my idea. Earlier I found it interesting, but now I'm declaring it as a boring stuff. Okay, so the same person is having two perceptions. So this is the real concept drift. Okay, virtual concept drift. Virtual concept drift means, suppose the watchers are the children, so new generation. Okay, they are enjoying the film today. After a certain period of time, the children are now growing up. Okay, and their personal preferences are also growing up. But since right from the beginning they enjoyed it, maybe they continuously enjoying it even in till date, even in today also. So that is the virtual concept drift. So virtual concept drift means that the decision is same. This new generation children, they enjoyed the movie right from their childhood days, and they still like this movie. So the decision is function is same, although the scenario is changed. Earlier they were kid, now they are adult. So this is the virtual concept drift. Again, I am coming back to the real concept drift. In real concept drift, I am the same person. So the background is same, but the decision function is now changed. Earlier I declared is interesting, and now I am saying that it is not at all interesting. So this is the real concept drift. So basically there are two types of change possible. One is change in the decision function. Earlier it was deciding that it is interesting but later it's converted it in terms of boring. Okay, the same person, the same data distribution, but later the data distribution is entirely changed. Earlier it was the feedback from the kids. After some period, it is the feedback from the adults, but the decision is still the same. So this is the virtual concept drift. So basically, these are the various kind of concept drifts which are possible. I am showing the pictorial representation to understand the concept drifts. Sometimes it is sudden. You can see the diagram 1. Sometimes it is gradual. So earlier we are losing these blue features and we are getting these red features. Sometimes it is incremental. So we are slowly losing the blue features and getting these red features. And sometimes it is seasonal or recurring. So there is a season, like this is the blue feature, red feature, blue feature again. So these are the concept drift types. So how we can control these kind of situations? So the challenge is we need to understand when it will come, when it will last, what should be the new kind of concept drift, what is the pattern, why it is causing, whether it is recurrent, whether it is predictable. So these are the things. One very important aspect, if it is related to the concept drift, is what is the difference between concept drift and noise? See, if it is a concept drift, we should be ready to adopt. Okay, because it is a very natural change. But if it is a noise, then we need to stop it. Okay, so we need to stop it means we should discard it. We should not, means there is no need to take it positively, but we have to suppress that. And that is really very challenging if you consider any IoT data. Then how you can assume that this is a natural change or this is a deliberate attack, and or if it is a noise. So if it is a natural change, you need to adopt. If it is a noise, then the strategy may be different. So this is something which is one of the very hot as well as challenging research issue, and still there is no standard solution available. We can only learn it over a period of time with the various machine learning methodologies. Okay, so if it is noise, so we have to be robust to handle the noise, and we need to be adaptive to detect the changes. Okay, and what is the limitation to us? Limitation is time and memory. Okay, so I am coming to the solution part, like how we can handle these particular concept drift problems. So we can handle these concept drift problems under 3 constraints, like delay, resistance to noise, and cost of adaptation. So delay means we cannot afford delay, and we have to understand what is noise and what is concept drift. And we have to also see, like if we are updating our SVM model again and again for the new data samples, then what is the cost of adaptation? Like how it is feasible to train the model again and again with limited data, and data is coming in windows, and we know the window size may be 10, 20, or window size may be of 5 minutes, 10 minutes, that's it. So how you can learn from this new data to adopt your model, and you are expecting that immediately after your learning completes, there may be new data sample. So suppose you learned your data from daytime, and suddenly there is a dark, maybe it is evening or night. So how that learned data, which is of daytime data, will help you to predict something for the night time? So that may be obsolete. So these kind of challenges we have to handle. So basically there is a mechanism. One is the concept drift detection mechanism. So the idea is very simple. What we do, we prepare some reference windows. Reference windows may be the most ideal case. Okay, so suppose I want that room temperature should be of 24 degree. So whenever the room temperature is recorded, I will check it with 24. So if I can allow the difference of 5 units, so if it is up to 19, it is okay. But if it is raising, if it is decreasing, maybe if it is 16 degree, 15 degree, so I can assume that there is a concept drift. Similarly for the upper bound. So most of the time concept drift detection is based with the help of some reference data. We need to take time to analyze any new data with the reference data. And if it is within range, there is no concept drift. But if it is beyond the range, there will be the concept drift. Okay, so this is the way which we follow the drift detection mechanism. Okay, and there are various steps you can see in the diagram. But finally, what we are doing, we are just checking the dissimilarity between the reference data and the upcoming data. Okay. So once this is done, then we have to see the severity of the concept drift. Okay. So the idea is when you have to identify the time when the concept drift occurs, then the idea is to understand how means the severity, and the idea is to calculate the complete reason, that is the where part. Okay. Again, for concept drift understanding, what we need to do, we have to identify the drift, and then there are various methods of drift adaptation. So what you can do, first thing is simple retraining. You will retrain the complete model. You will update the new hyperplane as I shown you that example, and you can adjust your model. So simple retraining, ensemble retraining. Ensemble retraining means we will not update the whole model, but we can update a part of it. Okay, so for example, if I know that in 24-hour cycle, we have a early morning time, we have a perfect morning time, we have an afternoon time, we have an evening time, and we have a night time. So if these are the different time slots, so I can perform an ensemble training with these different slots in a different way. Maybe for my early morning time, there is a different weather forecasting model which I have trained. Maybe for a peak afternoon, I have different model which is trained. Maybe for night time, I have different model. And accordingly, I will update the model. So if it is a time bound data stream coming, so maybe I can switch from the early morning model to the perfect morning model. Maybe I can switch from to the peak afternoon model. So that is basically the drift adaptation technique. Okay, so every time we need to forget the old concept and we need to come up with the new concept, and sometimes it needs to be retrained, but we have to make our retraining as light as possible because we are having limited data, and limited data is nothing but it is coming with the help of some windows, whatever window size we have adopted. Okay, so, and again, what we do, basically the same thing. One is the reference kind of learner, which we call as a stable learner, and second is the reactive learner. So every time we check our learners' performance with the ideal cases that are the stable learner. And accordingly, we compare the impact of concept drift. If our reactive learners are closer to the stable learner, so the concept drift is under control. Okay, and sometimes we do the ensembling of these modeling. So we take various aspects and we develop the different ensembles as per situation. Okay, and then these are some cases. So I'm concluding it in terms of very general terms. So the idea is how to handle the concept drift. We need to we need to first identify where the concept drift is. So suppose these blue and these white instances are there, so we need to identify this. Okay, so where the concept drift, so first we need to identify. Okay, then we need to perform the adaptive learning so that every data set, for every data set, this prediction or model can get adopted or updated. Okay, so these are the two important challenges which we have to handle. Now the question is how we support this. So basically there are four mechanisms. If we see the simple classification scenarios, so basically either we use single classifier or ensemble classifier. When we use single classifier, if the concept is drift is of triggering type, means if it is automatically changing, so we can use single classifier. If, for example, if the concept drift is because there are male participants and female participants and they have the different parameters. So we can simply switch if it is a male participant, so there is a male trained model and a female trained model. So it is a simple triggering type. Sometimes it is evolving. Evolving means we never know like what would be the next data instance because it is changing. So what we do, according to the upcoming data, we forget the previous data and we adopt the new data and we perform train and test again and again. Okay, so this is basically evolving kind of thing. With single classifier, it is possible. Sometimes it is ensemble. As I told you, like if it is a daytime, if it is a night time, it is a evening time. So we know that for every context, there may be different models trained and they can be dynamically integrated. And sometimes they are dynamically ensemble. So here it is a means basically it is a different model, but we are not sure like when the particular model has to be called. So what we do, we run all the models for any particular data scenario, and whatever would be the best one in terms of the accuracy or other parameters, we adopt that particular model. So this is the way how we handle the concept drift. Okay, so these are the issues. If I summarize, so issues are basically how to manage the data. So there is a possibility of windowing mechanism. The issues are how to process the data. So there are the possibilities of various operators like mapping operator, filtering operator, aggregation operator. So that can help us to process the data. And then there is a question of how to take the decision. So for the decision making, there can be many machine learning models, but still, since the concept drift problems are very tricky, so how to maintain the usability of that models in different scenarios. So these are some very basic streaming parameters or streaming constraints which we have to consider. Now I am coming back to the challenges and research questions which are related to IoT as well as the data streaming features. Okay. So any typical scenario you can consider like this, like it is a vehicular network where there are various roadside units, and these all are the maybe they are autonomous car, and they are having certain servers. From there they are getting the signals. So basically this is the simple example. Now, the first challenge is distributed deployment. So where to place a given operator. So operators can be anything like roadside units, the servers, the receivers. So how to maintain their distributed deployment. So that is something which is very tricky and difficult to answer. Then there are parallel deployments. So how to parallelize the analysis? So there are multiple vehicles, they are connected with multiple operators, and they are communicating with each others also, and they are responding to them some central server also. So how to perform all those things parallelly? This is important. Then ordering and determinism. So basically, you know that although these are the data streams, but sometimes suppose you are managing the congestion control, so you need to have a fair scheduling mechanism or fair ordering mechanism. So what will happen if you are facing challenges to maintain these kind of fairness? So ordering and determinism in data streams, especially in the domain of IoT, it is something which is very difficult to manage. And I have given certain resources from where you can see all those important points. Okay. Then there are multi-core architectures possible. Okay, so these multi-core architectures are, although they are useful, but we have to see how to maintain their internode parallelism and intranode parallelism, because either they are isolated for certain sections or certain features, but still the combined means their communication has to be shared for some collective purpose. So how to maintain all these two parallelism? Then there are the issues related to the load balancing part and state transfer part. Okay, so how to maintain the means previous information and how to accommodate the new information, and how to maintain this load balancing part where the variety of sources, they all are communicating and they all are updating again and again. So every time the statistics will become updated. So so basically this load balancing and state transfer is one of the issue. Then the next thing is elasticity. Elasticity means how we can see the fluctuations in terms of number of participants. So sometimes the number of participants or IoT load is less, sometimes gradually it is increasing, and how our policies in terms of concurrency control, or in terms of load balancing, or in terms of distribution of resources will work or will get updated according to situation. So that elasticity has to be maintained. Then there are fault tolerance issues. So we know that we cannot lose any information, we cannot afford any loss of data. So how we can prepare a system which is enough fault tolerant to cater the purpose without any loss of data. So that is one important challenge. Then there are differential privacy, like data sharing is there, and we want that although we want to keep everybody's record, but we want privacy also. So how to maintain their privacy features, how to avoid this privacy leak. So that is something which is really very important if we are working for these scenarios with limited resources, with immediate, and you know that out of all these features, the most crucial thing is real time analytics. So there are maybe lengthy operations which are possible, but we cannot afford all those lengthy operations here, because if there is any privacy breach or anything, we need to respond immediately. So that is something which is important. Okay, so so if I'm concluding, like what are the key focus areas for building a streaming platform for IoT? So basically, we have to see that there should be a common abstraction layer, there should be latency measures, there should be a very efficient Lambda architecture, so that the real-time data can get accommodated. There should be a scalability possibilities, rapid application development features, and data visualization. So this is what I have summarized, like what we are looking for. So abstraction layer means like we have to identify the simplest streaming engine, cloud providers, resource managers, and event sources. So that is the basic, you can say that ingredients if we are preparing a streaming platform for IoT applications. If I talk about the latency, so you know latency is very much application specific, but it can be from 500 milliseconds to 20 milliseconds. So you can decide, like if it is a dashboard, so we need very prompt response. But if it is for some backup maintenance kind of task, so we can decide the latency maybe in a relaxed way. So that is basically one thing. Then if we talk about its core architecture, so basically the core architecture should be competent enough to integrate static and real-time data, and it should support the workflows, maybe in terms of batch as well as streaming way, and it can be as strong as, so that it can having the data, it can having the adoption features for accommodating any kind of machine learning tasks such as classification or prediction or clustering. Then we can either use it for scale up purpose or scale down purpose, because you never know, like when there is a flooded IoT devices, or maybe the downfall in the IoT devices. So it should be ready for all those. And accordingly, we can dynamic resource management. We can achieve the dynamic resource management. So if there should not be something which is freezed. If there is limited load, so we can have more and more resources, and if it is a high load, we can have the genuine resources available. So we can make it dynamic also. So that is something which we have to see. Then these transient workloads should be shared in a fair way, so that we can make it more prioritized as and when required. Then we have the last one, that is the very basic requirements, like any specific requirement, for example, aggregation, filtering, correlations, splits, joins, normalization, some kind of logic building or business rules we have to accommodate. So there should be certain features for rapid application development. So this is basically which we are looking for. And at last, what I can say, like there may be the data visualization possibilities. So visualization is concerned, what we can do, dashboards are very common expectation nowadays. And other than dashboards, there should be time series visualization. We can keep various trends to be highlighted. We can have some of the comparative visualization, some of the thresholds. And the last thing is, it should be based on user interaction. So according to the user interaction or user interest, we can provide the visualization. So basically, these are the important areas where the streaming platform can work. If if I have to show the comprehensive architecture to address all these issues, I think that would be good enough, which can not only see the IoT devices at the edge level, but also it can able to see or manage it at the fog level or the cloud level. And it should be means the resources can be under observation at these three stages. Other than this, it should not only support us for basic operating systems, but it can help us for some of the very basic extended requirement, especially in the IoT case, for the purpose of data streaming. That is in terms of data flow, editor, parser, machine learning libraries, and processing libraries. And as we all know, like these all processing can be done at the in-memory way. So there should be a mechanism to store, to manage the efficient in-memory utilization of all those applications. Then we can expect the visualization of two types. One is the real-time dashboard, and second one may be the historical visualization. And it can finally cater to any of the applications in terms of IoT applications. So basically, this is the layered architecture. So this layered architecture is having all the possible layers, like resource management layer to runtime ability layer, then stream processing layers, then administration and control, and finally at the application layer. So basically, this is the comprehensive architecture to address. Now I am coming to the conclusive remark. So as far as the concluding remark is concerned, I am assuming that if maybe after this particular FDP, you are trying to explore your research interest in these topics which we have discussed. So I am considering on that. So as far as the IoT and data streaming is concerned, if we see in the algorithmic point of view, so the development of new algorithms, it is having wider scope because this data streaming algorithms are still having a lot of scope to accommodate new research findings. Why? Because we are having one pass computation. Okay. So new algorithm must ensure one pass computation over the streaming of data. Means whatever data you are getting, you will not get it again. So how to make firm decision or complete decision by having a single pass? Then we are having the faster computation requirement because we need to respond real time. So that lengthy machine learning algorithms where the training time took hours will not work. Here you have to train the data within the fraction of microseconds and you need to respond immediately. So that is something where the research scope is. Then minimizing the memory utilization by storing and summarized or sampling the data without losing any accuracy. So how to perform in the main memory? How to eliminate the need of the large volume of data storage? So that is something where the scope is. So if we are looking for the algorithmic development point of view, so these are the important aspects. Now, the next thing is evaluation measures. So whatever evaluation measure you have seen in traditional machine learning way, like accuracy, precision, recall, see that evaluation measures cannot work for the streaming environment because now the entire situation is different. Here the focus is not towards the accuracy, but also towards the promptness. So basically here we are having lot of scope to identify more new evaluation measures. Okay, so stream data mining is seriously needs new evaluation measures because there are data imbalance problems, because there are data which is heterogeneous, or maybe it is non-uniform distribution, and because the data is having temporal dependency. Other than this, lot of aspects you have already observed. So we cannot rely upon the typical evaluation measures of traditional database management system or traditional machine learning algorithms. Here we need entirely new evaluation measures, and these two environments are not at all comparable. And what I believe, what we have seen, like there are very wide scope of introducing new evaluation measures. And similarly, I have highlighted one important thing, that is the concept change identification point of view or concept drift identification point of view. So you can easily understand, like concept drift is something which is very dangerous nowadays, and it is very common. So whatever you are preparing for today, tomorrow may be something very new. You can see the news channel scenario. So suppose our mind is prepared for one kind of news, but every day there are new issues, and that becomes the national agenda, and people forget the older one. So basically, this is the concept drift problem. So how to make the models ready to adopt the concept drift and be honest for any new situation. So that is something which we have to deal with. So I think this is all about the ideas which I wanted to share among you all. And I have taken certain references which is listed here. And I have also given you a list of bibliography that is for basic study of IoT as well as streaming part. And I think now I am open for discussion and questions. So I request organizers to please see if there are some queries and I may able to solve it.